Well, good evening, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Carpo After Dark. It's been a while. I decided I'd step outside and have a little chat. It's Halloween tonight, Hallows Eve. I've enjoyed this evening. I went out with my family. We dressed up in costumes and makeup and traveled around and got the kiddos some candy and visited the neighbors. Came back and listened to some Halloween music. Now watching some old school Disney flicks with some old school characters. That good old childhood Disney programming, if you will. And, tonight being Halloween, it's one of my favorite nights. I'm not, as far as holidays go, I have kind of a very deep interest in that which is unspoken as well as that which is, I guess, on the darker side of understanding. But it's not that I'm a dark person by any means. I'm the, tie-dye wearing hippie, if you will. But it's the years ago, especially in my younger years, in my early psychedelic use, I was told that if you want to face reality, you have to face your own darkness. And I don't mean evil and negativity. And so I'm just talking about understanding that there are forces at work that we don't understand. Our existence is much more complex than we can ever comprehend, and that we should be grateful for what we have, our consciousness right now, to be here, and that we as men and women have separated into these, two sexes, which the union of these opposites creates new life. And using that as a metaphor, we can understand that as above, so below means much more than we might want to understand. And that many of the metaphors in these ancient books and teachings, if you can read between the lines, so to speak, you can gain vast amounts of knowledge. Whoa. Somebody just turned around the corner and just about... What the hell was that? What the hell? You better not run into any kids. Somebody just came whipping around the corner and slammed into the curb. They better not hit some kids out here trick-or-treating. It's only like 8:45. So anyhow, I kind of got a little detracted from the idiots driving. When, years ago I got very interested in, I guess, alternative... No, it's not... I won't try to define it. I'll just say that which is difficult to convey. The ideas of the ancient mystery schools, discussions that come from the time of Plato and Aristotle all the way up to more modern attempts at understanding these things, which came in like the 17th and 1800s. I don't know where to start on the issue. Years ago, I used to talk a lot more about things like this, like the occult. I was fascinated with symbols, gematria, understanding the depth of philosophic insight, just like I usually do, as much as I can, anyhow, as an individual. But also the understanding of and the respect and reverence for those who came before me and dedicated their lives to understanding the universe as best they can through their experiments. And I'm talking about the alchemists. And I know half of you hear alchemist and you probably think of a guy who's, sitting there in a dark dungeon pouring lead and trying to get it to turn into gold. And you wouldn't be that wrong. Many of the folks who came through history were limited on the knowledge that they could attain about prior experiences people had with alchemy. So they had gold on the mind. They worked diligently to try and produce gold for kings. Some kings, one king in particular, had, I believe, up to 40 different supposed alchemists working for him, trying to find that magic formula. But all the while, others would call them the profane, the ones who take things literally. And in the metaphoric sense, the idea of alchemy, turning lead into gold, is turning your negative thoughts into positive ones. But it's not that simple. It's not that cut and dry. That is a very, very raw way of explaining it. But it's basically learning how to transmute your any types of emotions or ideas that are negative or ignorant and turn them into something that can benefit you, something positive. Now, I've studied many different cultures, many different religions, and I will not call myself an expert on any one of them. Not a chance. But I will say that having a general idea of what they represent for the individual, I no longer have a negative view of religion as if it's something that should be abolished. At the very least, I'm glad that even people who are ignorant can have these ideas impressed upon their mind, even in a literal sense, to try and understand that, the Bible was never meant to be taken literally, at least not in a majority of it, and it's a very complicated book with many different sections, and I'll tell you right off, I usually wouldn't even talk about the Bible. In fact, when I was younger, just to give you a background, I threw Bibles out of windows of, like this, when I was staying in a motel, and I was very disrespectful toward it, and toward religion in general. And it wasn't until my later research into the Rosicrucians, the ancient mystery schools, the Library of Alexandria, the lost information through history that gave me a deeper insight that there are people out there who have very deep understandings of things that can benefit people to know. And I'm talking about bettering ourselves, bettering our environment, bettering everything about... Let me see, how do I word this? I'm going to sit down here. Try to. Pardon the loudness, dragging my camera over here, and I've a few years back I was fascinated with oh my gosh, there's no coincidence in life. I sat down in the chair, and this little black cat came and jumped up on my lap. Come here, kitty. And the funniest thing, and I'm glad that reminded me, it's Halloween, of course, as I mentioned earlier. There's one of the pumpkins. And earlier, when I was out trick-or-treating with my kids, we were about 3 blocks from getting back home, and I saw this little black cat. And it was just the cutest little thing. We just happened to see it. My wife's like, oh, hey, it's a cat. And she pet it, and I leaned down, and it was a fully black young cat. Very fluffy and soft. So we continued on our journey for the next few blocks and got home, and as soon as I walked up to my house into the yard, lo and behold, there's this black cat. And he's sitting there. He followed us home. And I walk into the house, and he follows me right in the house. And for those who have seen my previous videos in the last couple of weeks, I don't know if I have this cat named Tobias. And he's this orange cat that was kind of a local stray. And I took him in, and we started feeding him, and he's doing a lot better. It's not that he's totally neglected. I mean, the other neighbors help him out too, and I think he might have belonged to one of the previous tenants, which passed him off to somebody else. And point being that he just doesn't look loved. I mean, he's trying to find a place to stay, so I let him in, let him stay in here. And it's just, he's been here a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden this other cat, black cat, shows up on Halloween night. And on that note, the saddest thing is my wife comes in earlier, and she says, it's messed up. Those people across the street, and these people are hardcore Christians, supposedly. They have put signs in their yard during Easter which say, Jesus is real. It actually says that. Jesus is real. I mean, that's what the sign says. I'm like, is that really the message you're conveying? But anyhow, that orange cat, Toby, he's an older cat, and he was over there in her yard, and she was walking up with her groceries, I guess, and she's like, get out of here, get out of my yard. And she was like swatting the cat away. And I thought, when my wife told me that, she was, like, she said, why would a Christian be, supposed Christian be so mean to the cat? Because it wasn't just that. Our friend parked there once, and she said, you can't park there, even though it's a public street. My 5-year-old was running around, and he ran around the tree they have in their yard, and she says, oh, don't run in the garden, and there's nothing planted there. It's just silly things. And these are sometimes these folks who claim to be so religious seem to have no grasp whatsoever on understanding their actual community and understanding what their own religion is promoting. And so this is why I have absolutely no problem calling religion out for what it is, which is basically a facade of truth that helps some people cope so they don't have to look deeper. And this is the reason why the mystery schools and all of these deeper understandings are hidden from what they call the profane. It's not that people are too... a lot of people are too stupid to grasp it, but it's not that. It's that people don't want to put in the work. People would rather go stand in a church, sit in a church on a pew, have somebody preach to them what's important, and feel righteous, than they would be to go home and actually do real study, not just into one book, but into several, and try to understand not just their own beliefs, but other people's, and ask, why does the world tick? How does these things function? And this is what science was founded from, these ideas of trying to understand the world. But before science, there was alchemy. And if you don't know, alchemy comes from ancient Egypt, chem, or kemet, which is the ancient name for Egypt. And alchemy is the root of chemistry. Chem also comes from Egypt. And understanding chemicals and chemistry and atoms and molecules in today's world, I have a shelf full of books on organic chemistry and biology and microbiology. I have access to so much information. Much of it is incomplete, much of it is limited, but so much more than the alchemists that came before me. And as being someone who's fascinated with plants and tinctures and different plant medicine, if you will, being selling herbs as I do is totally it's a passion of mine. In other words, not something that I just do for money. And that's one of the beauties of it. Do what you love and put your intention into what you love. And that's why I've constantly been working over the years to understand herbs better. And I'm just so grateful that I have the information I have at my fingertips to be able to understand a little bit better how these things work. At least what compounds are in these plants. But if you want to go back further, I'm not just, chemistry in general. I know I'm kind of jumping around, but that's all this is, Jumping around is merely all that you can do with chemistry and alchemy. There are many, if you look back into some of the alchemical pictures, the illustrations in the books, they're so fantastic. They are so detailed that you couldn't fit that amount of information in several chapters. This is why they used pictures. And if you've never looked at alchemical illustrations, I would urge you to go look at some of the books. They are fascinating. And I think there's, it's called, his name's Jute, I think it's Tillman, I'm not sure, but he has a library over in the Netherlands, I believe. And it's the biggest, he spent 50 years collecting all of the different alchemical and occult text that he could. And I think he has over 50,000 books. And it's open to the public. I wish I lived over there. I'd go check it out. But some of these books, they have open up 3D flaps within there that have a variety of different shapes and try to explain basically how man connects to the universe. And some people are so scared of this knowledge that they're instantly resistant. Now, I know a lot of people, when I mention this in the past, they'll instantly go to the full Freemason Illuminati thing, and I'll just say, don't pull that bullshit. It's not worth it. I'm not going there. I'm not even going to discuss it, because First off, the Bavarian Illuminati only existed in the 1700s for less than 20 years, I believe, and they have no bearing whatsoever on today's world. They were just a continuation of old groups, a newfound group, and this is the same thing with the Rosicrucians and the same thing with today's Freemasons. Freemason took those old ideas and tried to rekindle them, and this is why these were ideas that were 1,000 years old. And until information was plentiful, it was difficult to obtain all this knowledge and get it together. And that was kind of my point earlier when I said we have more access at our fingertips today than we ever did in the past. That today's alchemists, philosophers, and researchers are vastly more well-equipped than the ancients, except for a few things. And one of those things is not properly... not properly understanding that and respecting the idea that not everything can be proven and not everything can be felt or measured or understood in that way. So this black cat came up and he's sitting on my lap. I gotta put you down, little kitty. I wish I could take a picture. He's the cutest little cat. I don't know where he lives, where he came from, but so anyhow, I'm going to walk over here into the corner onto the side of the house where it's a little bit quieter. I'm over here by my office now. This is where I work. Behind there. So I would like to just part by saying that I consider myself, just a seeker of information, but somebody who has been very fascinated with occult knowledge, which merely means hidden. It's just a metaphor, it's just an idea, it's just a word. And trying to use words to try to use words to define some of the things that we see in our deeper understandings, in our deeper researches. To try to define those in words is nearly impossible. I don't know how to even convey half the things I've learned, and so I walk away. But furthermore, even if I do try to convey it, the ideas are often attacked by the religious. And this is why many of these groups took shelter and hid their information, hid their research, hid their knowledge, and hid their practices. It wasn't about Satanism, and for some people it probably was. But, I've got to go here pretty quick. I'm almost out of time, but I really wanted to just get the message across that for some people, it really was about this idea of Luciferianism or of obtaining some sort of a, power over other people. But for many more people than that, it was about understanding the universe to help people. The idea of the New World Order, if you will, for some people, was domination over others. The idea of a New World Order for others was a new world of peace and prosperity. And I can say this as a fact, because it's just the same way as any religion, as Christianity or anything else. Most Christians just want peace for them and other people. They're not out for any blood or to harm anyone. But some people use it and warp it and twist it to their advantage to make it work for them. And the same exact thing for Islam. There's a lot of Islamic terrorism, but there's a lot of white terrorism, a lot of black terrorism, a lot of blue, green, yellow, whatever it may be. We have to let down our guard a little bit and say, we don't understand the universe. We can't prove that any one religion is actually correct. And therefore, all we can do is try to share ideas with each other. And this is what many of these fraternities did, or brotherhoods did. For me, I like the Groucho Marx idea. I would never be part of any group that would have me, I believe is how it goes. I think that most of the Freemasons that I've met and, that probably exist today are just pretentious assholes. And I mean no offense, because I've met several that are like, hey, in past videos who say that they're Freemasons and try to explain to me where they're coming from. And I just tell them I don't understand. For me, I don't need those steps of initiation for anything. I mean, times have changed. Information is plentiful. We don't need people to tell us what's important. It sounds like trick-or-treaters are coming up to me. Whoa. Weird. That was a trip. All these people just walked down my driveway. I didn't even see them walk up. You know, you shouldn't be trick-or-treating this late. So anyhow. Cute little kids. I love Halloween. This is an awesome night. I've got a black cat walking around my legs while I'm talking. My camera's almost out of time, so I guess I'm just going to part ways now and say, right now I've been fascinated with plant alchemy for a long time. I like to work with metal as well. I like to work with all the different elements, and I believe it helps us understand ourselves better in the same way that understanding psychology helps us understand ourselves better. Just a little bit. And I'm not talking about man-made psychiatry or psychology that, not some Jungian crap, although Carl Jung he really understood the archetypes, if you will, but I will wish you all farewell. And I hope you have a wonderful night. Take care.